This is the Comparative Justice module at University of the West of Scotland. I'm Dr. Alan Moore and I'm the module coordinator for this Comparative Justice module. So in your own mind, you've probably in actual fact made comparisons between different jurisdictions before. Even when you're watching the news and you see issues of crime or justice or unrest that may be happening in a far off country that's not your own, in your own mind you've probably thought, well, why do they do things the way that they do in that country? Why do they do things differently to the way they do things in my country? And this module is all about really beginning to get you to organise your thoughts around that on a more scientific basis and to actually enable you to understand why different criminal justice jurisdictions do things the way that they do. So you'll be learning about the history behind different countries and development of laws and crime, the culture that feeds into why things are done the way that they are. Indeed, when religion becomes a factor, why is that the case and how is that implemented into a legal or justice system? So we'll begin by talking about some of the theoretical underpinnings, what's called the legal traditions that exist behind the development, the historical development of criminal justice systems. So these are terms that you may not be aware of or you may not have really understood in any depth before, but this idea of a legal tradition is how legal systems have developed from inception through to contemporary times where we are now. So we've got examples of what's called common law traditions. We've got examples of what's called civil law traditions. And then we have things like socialist legal traditions. And indeed, mentioning religion like we did a moment ago, we have things like the Islamic legal tradition. And so laws and justice systems are built upon these foundations, these theoretical underpinnings, these legal traditions. And these legal traditions have allowed then the justice systems to grow and develop, in many cases today remaining very close to that original legal tradition. And in some cases, jurisdictions, countries, have developed somewhat beyond those original underpinning legal traditions. So over the course of the module, we'll be asking some big questions. We'll be asking, what is the purpose of police? Who should police be accountable to? Should the police be accountable to the state? So effectively, are the police a state-run institution or organisation? Or should the police be wholly independent of the state and answerable to the citizens, for example? Different jurisdictions, different countries do things differently, often depending on that underpinning legal tradition. There's then also the question of what is the role of the judge in the courtroom? Is the judge somebody that should be sitting passively, listening to the prosecution and defence, arguing out their statement, and only really interjecting if there's some serious deficiency or problem with the law? Or should the judge be an active participant in the investigation of the crime? Should the judge be thinking about what questions they want to ask and have answered? And so should the judge, rather than being passive, be much more active and central in proceedings? Now, these are things that you might not have realised do in fact differ from country to country. And again, that is based upon the underpinning legal tradition. And then the big questions regarding sentencing or punishment. Issues like the death penalty, like capital punishment. In some countries, a lot of countries, there no longer is an allowance for capital punishment for the taking of somebody's life based upon a crime they've committed. But in other countries and other jurisdictions, capital punishment is still very much a normal part of the justice system. So why is that the case? When is it used? Why is it used? And indeed, after you have really thought about the comparisons from that scientific perspective, do you agree with its use? Now, these are just some of the areas we're going to be covering. We will, of course, be covering a lot more, but this hopefully gives you a little bit of a taster for what is involved in the Comparative Justice module at University of the West of Scotland. So again, I'm Dr. Alan Moore, the coordinator for the Comparative Justice module. I hope you've enjoyed that little introduction, and I'm looking forward to seeing you throughout the course of the module.